Hey Roxanne, this is Andy from Black Veil Brides, and I'm doing a track-by-track remembrance. A remembrance of We Stitch These Wounds Now, Restitch These Wounds. First up is the Outcasts, originally called Arms, now it's Reborn. So this was a audio recording that my grandfather, Urban Flanders, did before he passed away. I remember when we were making the beginning stages of the record, I knew that I wanted to have something of him on the album. I was always very close to my grandfather, and it seemed like, to me, this was my first record, and it was an opportunity to have his voice there. And I always loved his voice. He was a speaker at our church growing up, and I just thought it would be a great opportunity to have him involved in some way. Now, this is before voice notes. I didn't have an iPhone, so there was none of that. So I had him call my cell phone and leave a voicemail, and then I gave it to Jake and said, hey, how do we put this on the record? And he figured it out, and then we made the original version. On the re-recorded version, Jake took that original voice memo, the voicemail note that was recorded into an MP3, and made this excellent version. It's to me, it's a great way of opening the record. What's being said is very indicative of the ethics of the band and what we believe and what the record is about. And also, to me, it's just a very exciting thing. We've actually used it recently as the introduction to our live show. When we had live shows, we did one in Mexico City before everything with COVID started, but also our live stream that we did just recently, we had it as the introduction. So it's always fun for me to have a little bit of my grandfather there, and it's something that over the years people seem to really enjoy. It's in the Perfect Weapon video as well. And yeah, I love this new version. Up next, we have We Stitch These Wounds. This is a song that was originally written kind of in two parts. So I wrote a version of this song back in Cincinnati growing up with my friend Chris Stewart, who was my friend in high school and was one of the original people in the band, the original iterations of Black Veil Brides. I had written the vocal melody and lyrics, and when I came out to LA, I had this song and this idea. But there was, I didn't have, Chris was not able to come out here with me, and we were just at different places in our life, and so I had met Jinx, and Jinx introduced me to Jake, and Jake started playing me songs that he had written, and just kind of coincidentally, Jake was playing this one instrumental song that he had written, and my melody and lyrics just seemed to fit right over it naturally. I mean, it's just one of those kind of coincidences. Obviously, it's in the same key, but we were able to make this version of this song based on a recording that he had done, a demo that he had done with my melody and lyrics just laid on top of it, and it was like it was meant to be. So that's the version of We Stitch These Wounds that you hear on both We Stitch These Wounds and Restitch These Wounds comes from the kind of the first collaboration that myself and Jake and Jinx had together. Up next, we have Beautiful Remains. This song was one that went through a lot of different iterations. Initially, it was, I was writing about this kind of concept of when you die, who are the people that are around you, who would be at your funeral, things that I would later kind of visit more in the song in the end. But the initial version of this was called Funeral in Flames. And it was about, I was fascinated by kind of the Viking funeral thing. And actually, there was a concept that I had where there was this character that was going to be, I think I was going to name her Alice. I have a cousin named Alice, and it was going to be named Alice, and she was going to follow this whole journey on this record, and it would end in this funeral and all this stuff. And I had written out, this is before I kind of had the idea of how to do a concept record, but this was very early on. And so the original version of the song was intended to be lyrically kind of based on that. And as time went on, that idea kind of went out the window, and so while that was no longer part of what we were doing, it wound up becoming Beautiful Remains. And actually there's versions of, we played this song live on our first tours as both Funeral in Flames and Beautiful Remains as it changed, and the concept of the song changed as well. But it's about kind of gathering around to celebrate someone, whether it's a loved one or someone that you know or whatever it is. The idea of celebrating life is kind of the key element to it. And so that's what that song's about. It's one of my favorite ones. I think it's one of the best songs on the re-recording. I love the re-recorded version, and I think it's definitely one of my favorites. So Chosen Surrender is a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek song. First of all, I love horror punk, and I love the Misfits and all that stuff, so I always wanted to write songs that had a horror element to them. But when we first started getting any kind of popularity, it was at the exact same time that Twilight was becoming very popular. And we had nothing to do with sparkly vampires, and it's no shade towards Twilight, but I had never read the books, I didn't see the movies, I didn't know anything about it. And we were, because
you walk into a Hot Topic, you'd see Black Veil Brides merchandise and Twilight merchandise. We were inaccurately attached by many people to that thing. And I can remember having a meeting with a pretty big agent, and they referred to us as vampire rock. And I just thought it was funny because I thought, well, we have nothing to do with vampires. I don't know why you're saying that, but they kept saying it. And then there would be other bands that popped up that were vampire themed, and it seemed like a lot of it was like, well, we think Black Veil Brides is like this, so let's do that. And it just seemed like, to me, it was just funny that there was all this stuff about us being a vampire band. So I said, well, fuck it, let's write our vampire song. And so this song is as much about, isn't it funny that people are ascribing us to be a vampire band, as much as it's about just being an isolated kid and being misunderstood. I mean, being as misunderstood as you are as a teenager, and then when your first record's coming out, people starting to call you vampire rock when you have no interest in being a vampire band or ever sing about vampires, those isolations and those misunderstandings kind of mimic one another. So that's kind of what the song is about.
Up next, we have Perfect Weapon. This is a song that everybody that knows Black Veil Brides tends to know. It was one of our first singles after Knives and Pens had come out. It was the first video that we did as a full band. And it was the second collaboration in terms of video that I had done with Patrick Fogarty, and one of the first times that Richard Villa was involved, and all the people that we wound up working with for many years. And so, yeah, this song is, obviously, it's one that we've played live for years. There are changes to this song that have occurred over the course of playing live music and playing in a live setting that I feel like they lent themselves well to this re-recording. Little minor vocal melody changes here and there, stuff that I have been doing live for the last 10 years that have now made their way into this recording. So I love the way this sounds. I think it's a much more, it packs the emotional punch a little bit more than the original does. Also, another song coming up here that's Knives and Pens, another song that people have heard for years. Obviously, it was the first song that anybody heard of Black Veil Brides for the most part. And one that, I've been singing it live or it's in general since I was 16 years old. So, I'm 29 now, so a lot of my life has been spent singing and screaming the lyrics to Knives and Pens. It's one that, again, this is a different version than the initial recording. When I had met Jake and Jinx, they took this song and kind of ran with it and did their own variation on it, and this is the version that we've been playing live for the last decade. And to me, of all of the many, many versions of this song that exist in terms of recorded versions of it, this is my favorite, and I think, again, like Perfect Weapon, it really has the punch and the emotion and the vibe that we wanted it to have on the first go-round. So, a little known fact about this, on the first recording, not the first recording, the recording that's on the original We Stitch These Wounds record, the label at the time wanted me to sound just like the video version, and so they had the vocals, because my voice had gotten deeper from the time I was 16 to 19, they tuned my vocals up on the recording. So if you ever wonder why the Knives and Pens on We Stitch These Wounds from 2010 sounds weird, that's why. And it's not a choice that I would have made, and it's not a choice that I love. But yeah, that version of the song on We Stitch These Wounds has never been my favorite, and I'm happy that we were able to do what we feel is a definitive version of the song for this. Up next we have Morticians Daughter. Now this one is one where there's been a lot of intrigue into why we made it into an instrumental only, or why things changed within the course of making this. The song was originally written when I was a very young teenager for the first girlfriend that I ever had, the first serious girlfriend I ever had. And all those feelings and the emotions that you have when you're very young, they're things that they mean everything to you, and you're burning with passion for these ideas and this feeling that you have of the first love you have, and you're pretty sure that no one's ever felt the way that you feel right now, and those kinds of things. And so I wanted in some way to be able to, while those are not feelings that I have anymore because of just life and changing and everything, I don't have those feelings towards the person that the song was written about. But that doesn't mean that other people don't, and it doesn't mean that people listening to this music, it doesn't resonate with them, because to you who's listening to Mortician's Daughter, it may be, I've seen many people say it's the song that they had their first dance to and those kind of things, or the song that they listened to when they first fell in love with their spouse or whatever it is. And so we wanted to be able to represent the emotions, those raw emotions of love and angst and excitement in the most pure form. And I had talked to Jinx about how can we make this sound like love and sound like sadness and sound like hope and all these things. And so ultimately Jinx took it and made this beautiful overture. And I think, while, yes, the original version, being that it has vocals and lyrics and all that stuff, it resonates to people. To me, this version of the song, it really encapsulates the emotional element. And again, the original versions are out there. There's many variations of the song, which I do sing on, whether it's the original recording or the album recording or the acoustic recording or all these different ones that are out there. So if you prefer lyrics on it, I encourage you to go listen to it. This is not meant to replace it, but to me, I just feel like this is such a beautiful, I think Jinx made such a beautiful and incredible piece of music, and I'm just so proud that it's on the record. I think it's just amazing, and I'm just so excited for what Jinx was able to accomplish with this. Next up is All Your Hate. All Your Hate is a song that we've been playing live, kind of on and off, for a number of years. It's a very aggressive song. This song was written at a time where, like a lot of the songs on the record, I was thinking a lot about kind of the people who were not great in my life. And when you're first starting in a band, you run into a lot of sycophants and weirdos and angry people and people who were trying to get something off of you. And you're kind of trying to, particularly for me, I was 18 years old trying to navigate Hollywood and LA and all the kind of different characters and people that were around. And I was learning from people's behavioral tendencies. I was learning both positive and negative lessons from people that I would come to be friends with for a time, and then ultimately would realize that maybe they didn't have my best intentions in mind or whatever it is. And so this song's a lot about kind of standing up against people who maybe don't want you to succeed or thrive, and being able to say, you know what, I'm learning these lessons from the shit that you're showing me, and it's not going to happen to me, or I'm not going to let it happen. And so when it came to re-recording this song, we really wanted to get that kind of angst and the aggression in it, and I feel like this version of the song really does have that. Up next is Heaven's Calling. Heaven's Calling is a song where it never fully made sense. Like it had the best of intentions on the initial recording, but we were never able to play it live very well. We were never able to figure it out. It was just one of those kind of like, it's very complicated and intricate musically, and the vocal melodies are very strange, and it kind of rolls one lyric into the next, and there's no real stopping. And it's a cool song, but we were just never able to really like crack the code on the song in general. And so with this, we wanted to really, it remains true to the original, but we wanted to figure out how to make the song elevated. And now when we've played it live on the live stream, or just when we're rehearsing it or whatever else, it feels like a staple of the set. So it's really come a long way in the last 10 years from a song that we almost felt like we couldn't figure out how to make it work, to a song that now I think we all really enjoy playing. And I think that it's been one of the songs on the re-recording that has stood out to people as kind of a surprise, because people didn't really expect this song to kind of hit the way it does. And I really think it's one of my favorites, because again, it went from a song that wasn't a quote-unquote favorite to a song that I think a lot of people are enjoying, and certainly something that we're enjoying. Next is Never Give In, which is also a similar situation in that this is a song that was written on the fly in the studio. We needed a song that represented this kind of emotion. I was writing the lyrics as I was singing them. The melodies kind of don't resolve. There's a lot of weird stuff happening in this song, and so we didn't do a lot to change it, but we did enough to kind of make it feel like how we wanted this song to sound initially. And so this one is another one where we went from a song that was kind of bizarre and we didn't know what to do with it, to a song that now I think really stands out as one of the better ones on the re-recording, and a really exciting one. And again, it had very strange beginnings. It was a song that most of the lyrics were written as I was tracking them in the studio. And so that's always a weird way to record a song. But the one thing about this song is that the term Never Give In has been a consistent thing amongst our audience for many, many years. People have for years gotten tattoos or t-shirts or said it as a mantra and a way of kind of seeing the world and believing in themselves. And so this song has always meant a lot to a lot of people, and we wanted to be able to do it justice and give it the right kind of redone, reimagined version that would kind of in some ways match up more with how people felt about the song as opposed to how it came off in the original recording. Up next is Sweet Blasphemy. Sweet Blasphemy is one of my favorite songs on the record. It's one of my favorite Black Veil songs we've ever done. This is a great representation, I think, in a lot of ways of, at least for me on a lyrical level, saying exactly what I wanted to say and having it work the way I wanted it to work. This is a song I remember when I first met Cece. because CC joined the band during the touring cycle for this record. He was not in the band when we had made the record initially. And by the way, sidebar, that is one of the things that to me really stands out about this album is CC's incredible drumming really elevates these songs in every instance, like in Sweet Blasphemy. But CC said that Sweet Blasphemy is one of his favorite songs that we had done. And I remember being so pleased with that because I thought, oh, but that's one of my favorite songs. So I'm glad to know that other people are feeling that way, particularly other musicians who I respected. So it's a song that has gone on for years it's a staple of our live set. We've played it probably more than a lot of the other songs that are non-singles from the early era of the band, because it so heavily encapsulates the idea of skepticism, but personal belief, and being on the edge of society, or being interested in the more subversive stuff and everything, but still remaining true to who you are. And obviously there's a religious component to it and everything else, but on the surface, and I think the real ethic of the song, while it does question the negativity that often people bring in organized religion and trying to bring out the positivity that I had seen in my life, it's also just about being different and being who you want to be and not listening to people who tell you you can't. And last on Restitch These Wounds, we have Carolyn. I think no song on the record had more of a large-scale makeover and deserved a large-scale makeover more than Carolyn. Carolyn is a song that it was one of the first things that Jake played for me when I met him. It was an instrumental that he had written as a tribute to his mother, who has unfortunately since passed away, and she was dealing with a lot, and he was telling me a lot of her medical issues and things, and he had written this piece of music, as a tribute to her, who herself was a musician. And so one night, we were living together in the early days. We shared an apartment, and we were getting to know each other. We had moved in quickly because we were in the days where we didn't really, we wanted to just get on the road, and if somebody didn't have a place to stay, come stay with me or whatever it was. And so we were sitting together one night in the living room of this tiny apartment that we shared, and he just told me the whole story of everything that she had gone through, and he played me this song. And so I told him, hey, I would like to take a stab at writing the lyrics from the perspective of what you just told me and trying to tell your story and find a melody that'll tell your story. And so I did, and he loved it, and so we did it on the first record. But the song sonically never stacked up to how we wanted the song to be, and how, certainly I believe, how Jake felt would be the most fitting tribute to his mother. And so this version, I know Jake put a lot of time and effort into the production, and it really shines. In the live version that we did on the re-recording, people seem to really love it, and it's such a good feeling song, and it means so much to Jake and to the band and to the audience, and it's one of my favorites. So I think of any of them, it might be my favorite on the re-recording. Thanks very much for watching this track by track with Rock Sound, and we did it. Here we are. And I hope everybody's safe and healthy out there, and I hope you enjoyed Restitch These Wounds. If you haven't listened to it, you can listen to it everywhere you can hear music. And up next for us is Black Veil Bride's 6th album. We're working on it right now, so that's coming next. Thanks again.